The first blow cracked the wood, and a splinter shot across the room, right past my cheek. My husband's voice, once gentle enough to soothe our son to sleep, now thundered through the door with a rage that didn't sound human at all. "Amara! Open the door!" Another strike. This one shook the frame so hard, the dresser beside it rattled. "Don't make me break it down." I pressed my back into the cold wall, chest heaving, sweat mixing with the rain still clinging to my clothes. The room around me swayed. Not from dizziness, but from knowing the truth he believed I didn't know. I clutched the tiny recorder in my fist until its sharp edges dug into my palm, the last thing my son ever touched, the last thing that had captured what he wasn't alive to tell me. Another slam. The door's lock shifted, metal bending under force. My pulse hammered so loudly I could taste blood at the back of my throat. I didn't have minutes. I barely had seconds. "Amara!" he roared again. "Open the door!" His anger wasn't random. It wasn't grief. It wasn't a man lost in shock. No, this was something else entirely. Something deliberate, something calculated, something I had lived beside for years without seeing. Another blow. This time the hinges groaned. I scanned the room frantically. There was no weapon, no escape, only the balcony behind me and the violent storm waiting outside. Lightning flashed, flooding the room with white, skeletal light. The wind howled through the cracks in the window, like it was warning me to hurry. I rushed toward the balcony doors and pushed them open. The storm hit me instantly, cold, unforgiving, lashing at my face like it wanted to peel my skin off. The rain-soaked tiles shimmered dangerously under my bare feet. Behind me, the door to the bedroom finally split. The sound hadn't even finished echoing before I heard his voice again. Low, venomous, chilling. "You're not going anywhere!" The floorboards creaked. He was inside the room now. I stepped onto the railing, gripping it so hard my fingers went numb. The drop below was steep. Dark dirt, slippery grass, and a tree whose branches shook violently in the wind. One wrong step and I'd break my spine. One hesitation and he'd catch me. "Amara." His tone changed, soft, coaxing, poisoned honey. "Come down, please. You're scared. You're confused. Let me explain." Explain? Explain what? Explain why he had been standing in a school hallway with a device in his hand. Explain the terror in the teacher's eyes when she begged me to run without using her voice. Explain why my son was gone. "No," I whispered. The wind tore the word from my lips before it even left them. Lightning cracked again, illuminating the doorway behind me. His silhouette filled it. Broad, still, predatory, the kind of stillness that comes right before violence. He took one slow step forward, then another. I didn't think. I didn't look down. I didn't breathe. I jumped. Rain slapped my face as air rushed past me. A branch struck my shoulder, spinning me off balance, scraping skin straight through my sleeve. I grabbed the nearest limb with both hands, pain exploding up my arms. The bark shredded my palms, but I held on. Above me, he leaned over the balcony rail, searching the darkness. "Amara!" His voice cracked through the storm. "I swear to God, come back inside right now." Thunder swallowed his threat. I hooked my leg around the trunk, sliding down inch by inch, breath ragged, heart in freefall. My feet finally touched the ground. Cold, muddy, unstable. The rain made everything shine like the world had been dipped in oil. I didn't stop. Not for a second. I ran through the yard, slipping on wet grass, crashing into a shrub. The recorder clutched to my chest like a heartbeat. Behind me, I heard the balcony door slam. He was coming, and I knew if he caught me tonight, I wouldn't see the morning. But the moment I reached the back gate and grabbed the handle, I froze because someone was already standing on the other side, waiting for me in the rain. My legs carried me down the hallway on pure instinct, not logic. Every step echoed, louder than it should have, like the house itself was warning me to turn back, but I couldn't. Not after what I'd just heard in that room. That broken whisper of my name that didn't sound like it came from a living mouth. I reached the door and pressed my palm against it, cold. Colder than a door inside a warm house had any right to be. My breath trembled, but I slowly twisted the knob. It resisted at first, like something on the other side was holding it shut, then suddenly gave way. The smell hit me first. Not rot, not dust, something I couldn't name. A scent like old memories drowned in fear. The room was dark, except for a faint strip of moonlight cutting across the floor. I stepped inside, and the wooden boards creaked beneath me as if complaining. My fingers skimmed the wall, searching for a switch. Nothing. No electricity. No sound. Only silence heavy enough to suffocate. My heartbeat felt too loud, thumping against my ribs like it wanted to crawl out of me. Then, a soft tap. I froze. Another tap. Closer. It came from the far corner of the room. I narrowed my eyes, trying to make sense of the shapes swallowed in darkness. Something was there. Not moving, but definitely there. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Hello?" The tapping stopped instantly, as if my voice scared it, or awakened it. A cold gust brushed the side of my neck. I whipped around, but nothing was behind me, nothing except the darkness I'd walked through. My throat tightened. This didn't feel like a room. It felt like a memory someone had locked away for a reason. Then my foot bumped into something on the floor, hard, heavy. I knelt down and brushed my fingers across it. It felt like a box. Wooden, old. My skin prickled. Before I realized it, I had pulled it into the moonlight. The lid was carved with marks, deep scratches, like fingernails dragging across wood. I ran my thumb over them and felt a jolt of something. Recognition? Fear? I couldn't tell, but I knew one thing. Whatever was inside that box was connected to the voice I'd heard whispering my name. My fingers hovered over the lid. I didn't want to open it, but some part of me knew this box had been waiting for me. I lifted the lid. Inside lay a stack of photographs. Old, faded, edges burned, as if someone tried to destroy them but couldn't. And on top, a picture of me, much younger, standing beside someone whose face had been completely blacked out with ink. My heartbeat tripped. I hadn't taken this picture. I didn't remember this room. I didn't remember that person. But the handwriting beneath the photo made my stomach drop. "You have forgotten, but I haven't." My fingers shook as I traced the ink. Forgotten what? Who? A creak sounded behind me. Slow, deliberate. I turned, and the door I had left half open was now completely shut, locked. From the outside, my breath caught. And then, from the darkness across the room, the same whisper as before floated to me. Closer, clearer, colder. "Do you remember now?" I should have run. I should have screamed, but instead, I picked up the next photograph, and what I saw inside it nearly made my heart stop. My hand hovered above the next photograph, as if touching it might burn me. The air around me felt heavier than before, thick, like it was pressing down on my lungs. I forced myself to breathe, but even the breath sounded wrong, too loud in the suffocating quiet. I slid the second photo into the moonlight. For a moment, I thought my eyes were lying to me. They had to be. Because the picture wasn't old, it wasn't faded, it wasn't damaged like the first one. It was new. Fresh edges, glossy surface. Developed recently, maybe days ago. My throat tightened as I studied it. It was my face. Not younger, not edited. Me. Exactly as I looked now. But I wasn't standing in the room. I wasn't sitting. I wasn't even awake. In the photograph, I was asleep. And not in my bedroom. Not on my bed. No, I was lying on the same floor I was kneeling on right now. Inside this room. The moonlight from the same angle, the same corner, the same shadows. Someone had taken this picture of me. Someone who stood exactly where I was standing. A tremor rolled through my hands. I wanted to drop the photo, but some instinct made me hold on to it. Like letting go would make whatever was happening even more real. I turned the photo over. Unlike the first one, this one had no message, just a small fingerprint smudged in the corner. A dark one. Too dark. My stomach twisted. That wasn't dirt. It wasn't ink. It looked wet, like whoever touched it had something slick on their fingers. I rubbed my thumb across it reflexively and instantly regretted it. A faint metallic smell lifted from the print. Blood. It was blood. My breath stuttered. A cold shiver ran across the floorboards, like something moving underneath them. I pressed my hand against the ground. Nothing solid, but a pulse of cold that made my skin crawl. I looked at the box again. There were more photos. At least 20. My fingers curled around the third one before my mind could stop me. It felt heavier, almost warm, as if someone had held it moments before I picked it up. I drew it into the light, and my entire body went still. Because this one wasn't of me, and it wasn't old, and it wasn't taken by accident. It was a picture of someone standing behind me. A tall silhouette. No face, no features. Just a shadow and human shape. But the worst part wasn't the figure. It was the timestamp printed at the bottom of the photograph. 00:03 a.m. Tonight. My mouth went dry. Tonight. As in, minutes ago. As in, while I was asleep. As in, someone had been in my room, watching me, photographing me, and I hadn't felt a thing. The boards behind me groaned, slow, heavy, like a footstep. I froze, every muscle locked, my heart squeezed so hard it hurt. Another creak, closer. The air shifted behind me, brushing the back of my neck like a breath. Something was in the room, something that didn't want to hide anymore. Then, the faintest whisper pressed into my ear, so close I felt the warmth of it. Look at the next one. My shaking fingers reached for the fourth photograph, but when I lifted it, the image printed on it wasn't just disturbing, it was impossible. My hand felt numb as I reached for the fourth photograph. I didn't want to pick it up. My instincts screamed at me. Walk away, run, break the door, do anything except look at what waited inside that box. But curiosity has a cruel way of overpowering fear. My fingertips brushed the edge of the photo, and for a split second, the paper felt warm, almost like someone's hand had been resting on it. I swallowed hard and dragged it into the moonlight. And then everything inside me went cold. Because the photo didn't show the room. It didn't show a shadow. It didn't show me sleeping. It showed me, yes. But I wasn't alone. In the picture, I was standing in this exact spot, facing the door, except in reality, I was kneeling on the floor. In the image, my expression was frozen somewhere between fear and confusion, my mouth slightly open, as if mid-whisper, my eyes wide, staring directly at the camera. No, not the camera, at the person holding it, and right behind my photographed self stood the same faceless silhouette from the last picture. But now it was closer. Its shape was sharper, more defined. Its hand hovered above my shoulder, almost touching me. My stomach lurched. This photograph wasn't taken earlier. Not minutes ago. Not hours ago. It was taken while I was already inside this room. But that was impossible. I wasn't standing. I wasn't looking at anything. I hadn't posed for anything. It meant one terrifying thing. Someone had taken a picture of a moment that hadn't happened yet. Or worse. A moment that was happening, but I couldn't see it. A faint vibration hummed through the floorboards. A tremor like something crawling underneath them. I staggered back from the photograph, my breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. Then, from inside the darkness behind me, a sound whispered through the room. Not footsteps. Not tapping this time. A soft inhale. A human inhale. Someone breathing in slowly, like they were standing inches from my back. My chest locked. I didn't dare turn around. But I could feel it now, that cold presence I'd been denying. The weight of eyes on my spine, the quiet, patient awareness of something that wasn't supposed to exist. My voice cracked as I forced out a whisper. What do you want? Silence. No answer, just breathing. Soft, steady, too close. My knees trembled, but I stayed still. Moving felt dangerous, like any sudden motion might provoke whatever was behind me. Instead, I looked at the back of the photograph. Maybe there'd be a message, a clue, anything. The moment I flipped it, a chill tore through me. Words were carved into the paper, not written, not printed. Carved, like someone had pressed a blade into it. Stop turning around. My pulse stopped. My throat closed. Because in that exact moment, as if obeying the command carved onto the photo, the breathing behind me suddenly stopped. And the silence that followed was worse than the fear itself. Every hair on my body stood on end. And then, from right beside my ear, so close the warmth of it grazed my skin, the next picture is the truth. My shaking fingers reached toward the fifth photo, and the moment I touched it, something moved in the room. And this time, it wasn't subtle. My fingers hovered over the fifth photograph, but they didn't feel like my own anymore. They felt distant, trembling on their own, guided by something I couldn't fight or understand. For a moment, I considered stopping, closing the box, breaking the door, running until the cold left my bones. But then the sound came. Not a whisper, not breathing, not the faint shifting of weight. This time, something dragged across the floor. Slow, deliberate, heavy enough that the wood groaned in protest. My body jolted. instinctively twisting toward the sound, but I stopped myself at the last second. The warning carved into the photograph pulsed in my mind. Stop turning around. My breath caught. Whatever was behind me wasn't hiding anymore. It was moving, coming closer. The drag continued, inching toward me, scraping the boards with a rhythm like a heartbeat. Slow, then slower, then stopping altogether. The air in the room thickened. It didn't just feel cold. It felt aware. I forced my attention back to the fifth photograph. My fingers brushed it, and the paper wasn't cool like the others. It was warm. Too warm. Like someone had been holding it tight in a sweating palm. I pulled it into the moonlight, and my stomach twisted so hard I nearly doubled over. This photograph wasn't a picture. Not really. It was a close-up of an eye, a human eye. Wide, terrified, staring directly into the camera. The detail was so sharp it felt invasive. I could see every line, every fleck of color, every thin vein. The lashes were wet, as if the eye had been crying. But the worst part wasn't the eye itself. It was the faint reflection in its pupil, the reflection of a figure. A dark silhouette, the same faceless shape from the earlier photos. And behind it, barely visible, was me. I staggered backward. A cold rush of panic surged through my chest. This wasn't just someone watching me. This wasn't just someone taking pictures of me. This was someone documenting the moment before something terrible happened. A moment that seemed to be getting closer. My hand shook violently as I turned the photo over. There was another carved message. Deep, uneven, like it was scratched in a hurry. You are looking at your own fear. My breath hitched. I didn't understand. Was the eye mine? Was the reflection something I wasn't aware of? But before I could process any of it, a sudden thud slammed into the floor directly behind me. Not a small noise, not subtle, a violent, heavy impact, as if something had dropped from the ceiling or landed on its feet. My entire body went rigid. I didn't turn. I didn't breathe. The message was still carved into my mind. My instincts screamed at me. But then I heard something I had been dreading since the moment I walked into this room. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Uneven. Not coming toward me. Worse. Circling me. One step to my right. Pause. Another behind me. Longer pause. Another. Closer. My lungs burned as I tried to keep silent. I could feel the presence now. Towering. Cold. Patient. Like it was studying me. Waiting. Then something brushed the back of my hair, light as a fingertip. I flinched, and the footsteps stopped instantly. The silence pressed against me like a hand around my throat. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I knew I had to see it. But before I could decide, before I could breathe, a voice whispered from directly above me, dripping with a cold, unnatural calm. Check the next photo. It's the moment everything started. My hand shook uncontrollably as I reached into the box, but when I lifted the sixth photograph, I realized it wasn't a photograph at all, but something far worse. My hand plunged into the box again, not because I chose to, but because something in the room wanted me to. The air thickened the moment my fingers touched the next object. It wasn't thin photo paper. It wasn't glossy. It wasn't even flat. It felt rough, textured, like skin without warmth. I pulled it into the moonlight, and my throat closed. It wasn't a photograph, not even close. It was a fragment of fabric, a torn piece of dark cloth, frayed at the edges, like it had been ripped off violently. But that wasn't what made my stomach twist. What made me nearly drop it was the stain smeared across its center. Not dirt, not paint. Something thicker, darker. Dried into the fibers with a stiffness that made the cloth curl at the ends. Blood. Again. But not old this time. It still smelled faintly metallic. My fingers trembled as I held it up, and in the shifting moonlight, I saw something else. Something faintly pressed into the cloth, like an imprint, a handprint, long, uneven fingers. Too long, wrong. The shape wasn't human, not fully. A wave of nausea hit me. I lowered the cloth, sucking in a shaky breath, but then the floor beneath me pulsed. Just once. A deep, slow thud, like a heartbeat. I scrambled backward, bumping into the wall. My nails dug into the wood as I tried to steady myself. The room felt alive now, like the walls were breathing, closing in inch by inch. I tried to drop the cloth, But the moment I loosened my grip, a sudden gust pushed it back against my palm, as if the room refused to let it go. No, I whispered, barely audible. No more. A whisper answered from the darkness, low and almost tender. You're only just beginning. The lights outside flickered. Shadows stretched. And something shifted in the far corner. Something tall, uncurling from itself, like it had been crouched there this entire time, waiting. I couldn't see its face. Or its body. Only its outline. A dark mass of wrong angles and bent posture. It stood slowly. Too slowly. My breath hitched as it turned toward me. I didn't see its eyes. There were no eyes. But I felt them lock onto me, dragging a cold sensation across my skin, like ice melting down my spine. My heartbeat thrashed in my chest. What do you want from me? My voice was barely a breath. The figure didn't move, didn't speak. But the room answered for it. The torn cloth in my hand twitched. Once, twice. Then the pressure of something unseen curled around my wrist. Not a grip, not fingers. A presence, a weight. Like a cold band tightening around my skin, pulling my arm forward. Slowly. Insistently. No! Stop! It didn't stop. My hand moved toward the box again, forced by something I couldn't fight. The wood scraped under my palm as it guided me back to the remaining contents. The figure in the corner took one step closer. A slow, dragging step. The floorboards moaned under its weight. Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't dare blink. The darkness felt sharper than blades. Then the presence around my wrist squeezed, sending a jolt of cold up my arm. It wanted me to take something else from the box. Something heavier, thicker, breathing. My fingers brushed the next object, and I realized with a sickening jolt that whatever I touched was warm. Warm like skin. Warm like a living thing. And then it pulsed under my palm, not an object, not a photograph, not even fabric. Something beating, something alive. My scream never made it out. Because in the same breath, the tall figure in the corner leaned forward, its voice a low rumble that seemed to shake the air itself. Take it, and remember what you've forgotten. My shaking hand lifted the warm, pulsing object from the box, only to realize it wasn't just alive. It was connected to me in a way that defied everything I understood. The warm object in my hand shifted again. Subtle, but unmistakably alive. A faint pulse fluttered against my palm, syncing with my heartbeat so perfectly, it felt like the two rhythms were becoming one. My breath hitched as I lifted it into the strip of moonlight, terrified of what I was about to see. It wasn't a heart. It wasn't flesh. Not exactly. It looked like a small, smooth stone, dark, oval, but oddly soft to the touch. Almost rubbery. Thin, vein-like lines pulsed beneath its surface, glowing faintly with every beat. I stared at it, unable to comprehend. The pulse quickened. So did mine. A realization clawed at my mind. It wasn't just synced with me. It was responding to me. My fingers tightened around it without meaning to, and the glowing veins flared bright for a moment. Like it was frightened. My breath caught. I loosened my grip instantly, and it dimmed again, its pulse slowing. It was aware. It recognized fear, and it was reacting to mine. I wanted to drop it, throw it, kick it, anything, but my hand refused to let go. Not because something held it, but because something inside me didn't want to release it. A horrible familiarity whispered at the edge of my mind, like memory trying to claw its way out of a locked door. Behind me, the tall figure shifted. The wood under its weight cracked, loud, splintering, final. A warning. Why? I whispered to the darkness. Why are you doing this to me? The pulse in the stone tightened suddenly, like a spasm. And then I heard it. Not a whisper in the room this time, a whisper inside my head. Faint. Broken. Echoing from behind a wall of static. You carried it first. My stomach dropped. My knees buckled. No, I breathed, shaking my head. No, this isn't mine. It can't be. But the whisper pushed deeper, threading itself through my thoughts. You carried it. You left it. Now it returns. The room swayed. The edges blurred. The pulse in the stone doubled, matching the rising panic in my chest. Left it? When? How? My memories felt scrambled, as if someone had torn them apart and put the pieces back wrong. I clutched my head with my free hand, digging my nails into my scalp as if pain might force clarity. But nothing came, only static, only blackness, only the heavy presence behind me, waiting, like it knew exactly when the truth would snap open. The floorboards vibrated again. One slow step, closer. The air turned colder, sharper, my breath fogged faintly in front of me. The figure's presence pressed at my back, towering, suffocating. And still, I didn't turn around. The stone in my hand pulse-throbbed harder. Once, twice, then it cracked. A thin fracture split its surface, glowing with an inner light that spilled between my fingers. A sound escaped it, soft, pained, almost like a gasp. I nearly dropped it. Nearly. But then something even more horrifying happened. The moment the crack appeared, something inside me cracked with it. A flash, not a memory, not a vision, just a feeling, a deep, wrenching sense of loss. A loss so sharp it felt like something had been ripped out of me, long, long ago. My breath caught. My grip trembled. What are you? I whispered, voice barely holding together. The stone answered with a whisper so close to my own voice, it made my blood run cold. What you abandoned. The tall figure stepped so close that its presence fell over me like a shadow swallowing my spine. Its breath, cold, heavy, brushed the back of my neck, and in a voice low enough to turn my bones to dust, it said, as I reached into the box again, the cracked, glowing object in my palm responded, lighting up the moment I touched the next item, revealing an image I should never have seen. The cracked, glowing object in my hand pulsed faster the moment my fingers brushed the second item in the box, as if urging me, warning me, or pushing me toward the thing it already knew I'd find. My throat tightened. I didn't want to look. Something in my bones refused, but something deeper, a pull I couldn't fight, forced my hand. The tall figure behind me didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't exist as a man should, yet its presence weighed on me like a hand pressed to the base of my skull, guiding me forward. I swallowed hard and reached into the box again. My fingertips touched paper, cold, thick, slightly curled at the edges, like it had been handled many times. The stone in my other hand flared, blinding for a heartbeat, then dimmed into a trembling, frightened glow. I drew the paper out slowly. It wasn't a letter. It was a photograph. My heart dropped. At first, it was just blurred light, shadows, noise, like an old camera trying to capture motion in the dark. But as the glowing cracks in the stone brightened, the image sharpened, revealing shapes, outlines, people. Then my knees nearly buckled, because there I was, standing in the middle of a dimly lit room, tears streaking my face, my hands gripping something, someone, small, fragile, wrapped in a blanket. The photo trembled in my hand. The glowing stone pulsed harder. A sour taste filled my mouth, metallic and heavy. No, no, this couldn't be real. I scanned the background of the photo, desperate for something familiar. A wall, a narrow window, a crooked shelf, peeling paint. Nothing resembled my home. Nothing resembled any place I remembered. Yet the fear in my eyes, that part I recognized far too well. I stared at myself in the photo, and something inside me cracked open, the way the stone had. Where was this taken? I whispered, though part of me didn't want the answer. The figure behind me exhaled. If that sound could be called breath, my skin crawled. My spine stiffened. Ice filled my veins. But it didn't speak. Not yet. The stone pulsed again, shrinking subtly in my grip, as if recoiling from the photograph, as if remembering exactly what had happened that day. My hand shook so hard, I almost dropped both the stone and the photo. I clutched them tighter, my nails digging into the paper. I don't remember this, I whispered. I never. A pressure built behind my eyes. A headache so sharp it felt like needles were pushing outward from the inside. Images flickered in my mind. Quick flashes, incoherent, broken. A door slamming, rain pounding on a metal roof. My own voice screaming, a small hand slipping from mine. A hospital hallway, a smell of smoke. Someone begging, someone leaving. Each flash stabbed through my skull with vicious precision. I pressed my palm to my forehead, gasping. "Stop," I whispered. "Please, stop." The tall figure finally shifted. Its foot dragged lightly on the wood floor, a soft, deliberate movement that filled the entire room with dread. And then, its shadow fell over me, long, distorted, stretching across the floor like something no human should cast. "You remember," it said. Its voice wasn't a single voice at all. It was layered, dozens, hundreds, like memories speaking all at once. I froze. My mouth went dry. "I don't know." My voice shook. "I don't remember anything." The stone throbbed painfully in my hand. The crack widened, just a millimeter, releasing a faint wisp of warmth, like breath escaping. And then, the photo changed. Right in my hand, the edges darkened, shadow creeping inward like ink soaked through the paper. The figures blurred again, shifting, twisting, and then clarifying into a new image. This time, it wasn't me holding the wrapped bundle. It was the tall figure, standing exactly where I had been in the first photo, cradling the blanket like something precious. And underneath the blanket, a tiny hand hung out. Limp, still, waxy pale. My knees hit the ground. "No." The word broke out of me as a sob. "No, please, no." The photograph looked alive with shadows, like it was still happening inside its frame. The stone burned in my palm. The figure stepped closer, slow, towering, inevitable. "You knew," it whispered. "You carried. You hid." And then it knelt behind me, its breath cold at my ear. "This is only the second truth. There are 11. Before I could breathe, the figure placed its hand on my shoulder, and the room around me dissolved into a place I thought I would never see again. The room tilted when my mother whispered, "He came here last night, asking if I knew where you were." My heart slammed so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. He was here? In this house? This house that still smelled like old memories and safer times? "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, but my voice sounded nothing like mine, thin, stretched, trembling. She looked at me with eyes full of something I couldn't read. Fear, maybe, or pity, because you were already shaken, and I didn't want to push you off the edge. But hearing it now did push me. It pushed me straight into a place inside myself I'd been avoiding since the night everything shattered. I stood up too fast. My legs wobbled, but I kept moving, pacing the living room, as if motion could help me outrun the truth crashing down in waves. He had looked for me. Not called, not texted, not begged for forgiveness like any normal human would. He searched for me, like someone hunting something they believed still belonged to them. My stomach curled at the memory. The last thing he said before I ran out of the house that night, my hands still trembling from what I'd seen. "If you walk out that door, don't think it's over." And now it suddenly made stomach-sinking, bone-deep sense. "It's okay," my mother tried to reassure, her hand lightly touching my shoulder. "I told him you weren't here, that I didn't know where you went." A chill crawled up my spine. "You lied for me," I whispered. She nodded. "Of course I did. You're my child." For a moment, the air softened, but my mind didn't. All I could think about was him standing at this very doorway, his eyes searching, calculating, waiting. I didn't notice when tears began sliding down my face until one dropped onto my hands. My mother took both of them gently, the way she hadn't done since I was a child. "Tell me what really happened," she said. "Tell me what broke you that night." My throat tightened. I opened my mouth, closed it again. How could I explain something I still didn't fully understand? How could I tell her about the phone call that froze my blood? About the voice on the other end saying something no stranger should have known? And worse, the thing I saw after the call? I swallowed hard. "Mom, you won't believe me." She didn't flinch. "Try me." The room dimmed as if the house itself leaned in, waiting for me to speak. My lungs felt too small for the truth I'd been carrying. "He wasn't alone that night," I finally said, my voice barely a breath. "He wasn't talking to me. He wasn't talking to anyone I knew. But they, whoever they are, they knew everything about me. Things I've never said out loud. My mother's hand stiffened in mine, and when I walked in on him, when he saw me standing there, the look he gave me, I shivered. It wasn't shock, it wasn't guilt. It was like he'd been waiting for me to find out. My mother's eyes widened, fear blooming slowly across her face. "What did you hear?" she whispered. I looked at her, and for the first time, I said it out loud. The person on the phone said, "We gave you enough time. Finish it before she figures it out." The silence after that was so heavy it felt alive. My mother slowly pulled her hands away, her expression twisting into something I couldn't name. Then she whispered the one sentence that crushed the air out of my lungs. "You need to sit down, because I know who that voice belongs to." What secret does her mother know? And why does she look terrified? My knees almost buckled. "Mom, what do you mean you know who that voice belongs to?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at the floor as if searching for words buried somewhere deep beneath the tiles. Her hands shook. My mother, who never shook. My mother, who survived storms that would break most people. "Sit," she repeated softly, but there was steel in her tone. I sat because I couldn't stand. My breath was stuck somewhere between my throat and my heart. She slowly lowered herself into the chair across from me. "I prayed this day would never come," she whispered. But I knew it would. The room felt too small for the tension inside it. "Mom, tell me," I begged. "I'm losing my mind." She lifted her eyes to me, eyes that carried a fear I had never seen in her, not even when life had been cruelest to us. "That voice," she said, swallowing hard, "it belongs to someone you knew when you were very young." My skin prickled. "Who?" She took a shaky breath. "Your father's brother." I blinked. Once. Twice. "My what?" The words scraped out of my throat. "Your uncle," she said, voice trembling. "Your father's younger brother." My heart stuttered. I felt as if the ground cracked beneath me. "I don't have an uncle," I whispered. "Dad never mentioned." "He wouldn't." Her voice was sharp, almost breaking. "Your father cut ties with him before you were born." A cold wave washed over me. "Why?" For a moment, she didn't answer. When she finally spoke, her words came out like something she had been forced to hold for too long. "Because he is dangerous," she said. "Because your father found out what he was capable of. And because he wanted to protect you." My pulse roared in my ears. Dangerous, capable, protect. Every piece of the puzzle I'd been clutching suddenly splintered in my hands. "Mom, what does he want with me? Why would he be on the phone with him?" I couldn't even bring myself to say my boyfriend's name. My mother looked away, as if ashamed. "That's the part I hoped you'd never learn. But it seems he hasn't changed." A chill curled around my spine. "What did he do?" My voice barely survived the question. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were full of tears. "12 years ago, before your father passed, he told me something. Something he never wrote down, never repeated, never shared with anyone else." I leaned forward, breath frozen. "He said his brother was involved in things he shouldn't be, illegal things, and that he got deeply tied to people who don't forgive debts, people who see family as leverage." My stomach dropped. "And when your father refused to help him," she continued, "your uncle threatened to take something from him, something precious." The world tilted. "Mom, what are you saying?" My voice cracked. She finally looked me in the eyes. Your uncle said he would come for you." Silence swallowed the room. My blood turned cold. Every instinct in my body screamed that the shadow I thought was following me wasn't a shadow at all. "But Dad told me he handled it," she whispered. "He told me your uncle disappeared abroad, that we were safe." Her breath trembled. "Until now." I grabbed her hand, squeezing it. "So all this time, someone was watching me?" My voice trembled with disbelief and terror. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm afraid so. And if he's working with your boyfriend, then this is much, much deeper than we thought." My chest tightened. My vision dimmed at the edges. Then she said the sentence that shattered me. "He didn't want to hurt you, sweetheart. He wanted to use you." My breath died in my lungs. What does her uncle want? And what role did her boyfriend play in the betrayal? The word use echoed inside my skull like someone had whispered it into a hollow, endless tunnel. Use me. For what? How? Why? My mother's face blurred through my rising panic. My breath grew sharp and uneven, like I was inhaling broken glass. Mom! I choked out. Tell me everything. Don't hide anything now. I need the whole truth. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, steadying herself. You deserve to know, but you have to promise you won't run off and do something reckless. I didn't promise. I couldn't. Because I already felt something inside me shifting, fear turning into something harder, sharper, stronger. She sighed, defeated by my silence. Your uncle doesn't just owe money, she said. He owes his life. And the people he's tied to, they don't deal in dollars. They deal in leverage, pressure, control. My skin tingled. Meaning? She clasped her hands together tightly. Meaning he would offer anything to keep himself alive. Even a person, even someone innocent, someone connected to him by blood. My hands turned cold. And Dad knew this? I whispered. Yes, she said, nodding slowly. Your father tried to keep him out of his life, but your uncle was always slipping back in, always making promises he never kept, always involving himself with the wrong people. I closed my eyes, trying to steady the storm inside me. How does my boyfriend fit in? That question tasted like poison. She hesitated. Only for a second, then, painfully. I think your uncle found someone close to you. Someone he could manipulate. Someone he could promise something to. Money, connections, something your boyfriend must have wanted badly enough to betray you. My heart stung at every syllable. I felt each word like a bruise. So he... I swallowed hard. He pretended to love me? She didn't answer. And the silence was worse than any truth. A horrifying awareness crept into me. Mom, I whispered. The night I left. When I overheard that phone call. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't him trying to get rid of someone. He sounded calm, like he'd done it before. She looked at me with a softness full of pain. You heard him planning something, didn't you? I nodded. And after that, my voice cracked. I walked into the study and found a document with my name on it. Something he tried to hide. Her breath hitched. What did it say? The memory slammed into me like a punch. I felt again the sting of betrayal, the cold shock running through my veins. It was a legal form, I whispered. A power of attorney, signed, forged, giving him control over my assets, my accounts, everything. My mother gasped. Oh, God! And when he saw me holding it, I continued, voice trembling. He didn't look surprised. He didn't panic. He didn't try to explain. My throat tightened. He just said, You weren't supposed to see that yet. My mother covered her mouth, horrified. I felt myself sinking back into that night. My shaking hands, my racing heart. The way his eyes looked through me, not at me. How long? I whispered. How long had he been planning this? My mother's voice broke. Long enough to make you trust him. A bitter, loud silence filled the room. A silence heavy with understanding and fear. Then she whispered, almost to herself, If your uncle needed leverage, and your boyfriend needed money, then you were the perfect target. The words hit me like an earthquake. Every memory of love twisted into deception. And then, just as the world settled into its terrifying new shape, my phone buzzed on the table. I looked down. One new message. From an unknown number. But the moment I saw the preview text, all the air left my lungs. Who sent the message? The uncle? The boyfriend? And what exactly did they start? The phone vibrated again. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Each tremor felt like a hand closing around my throat. My mother and I stared at the screen as if it were a live bomb ticking down. My pulse hammered so loudly I could barely hear anything else. What? What does it say? She whispered. I turned the phone slowly. The message opening as if the screen itself were swallowing the room whole. Unknown. We need to finish what we started. My fingers tingled. A slow wave of ice spread from my chest to my spine. My mother stood up so quickly, her chair scraped across the floor. You're not answering that, she said firmly, but part of me, some broken, brave, furious part, felt like answering was the only way to understand the storm I'd been dragged into. My voice came out hollow. What if answering gives us a clue? What if it's him? Or the other one? She shook her head, her panic rising like heat in the room. No, you don't talk to monsters. You stay away from them. But I wasn't sure anymore. Maybe staying away was how they'd gotten this far. Maybe silence was exactly what they counted on. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. Stop ignoring me. You know who this is. My blood froze. No, I didn't know. And that was the part that terrified me. My mother grabbed my wrist. We need to block the number. Wait. I pulled away gently. What if it's my uncle? What if he— She cut me off sharply. If your uncle wanted to talk, he wouldn't send messages. He would show up. The certainty in her voice shook me. Mom, how do you know that? Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't place. He's not the type to hide behind a phone. Trust me. A chill slithered under my skin. Before I could ask what she meant, the phone buzzed again. This time with something different. A photo. My heart nearly stopped. My hand shook as I tapped it open. The image loaded slowly, painfully. When it finally appeared, my breath collapsed. It was a picture of me, taken through a window, taken today, taken while I was inside my mother's house. My mother covered her mouth with a horrified gasp. Oh my God, he's watching us! My vision blurred. My hands went numb. The room felt like it tilted sideways, the walls closing in. I need to call the police, my mother said, reaching for her phone. But I grabbed her hand. Wait! My voice barely existed. If he's close enough to take that picture, then he's close enough to hear us. We froze. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. I slowly walked toward the window, each step echoing like footsteps in a nightmare. I pulled the curtain an inch, just enough to see outside. Nothing. No movement. No car. No shadow. But the stillness itself felt wrong. Too quiet. Too deliberate. My phone vibrated again. Unknown. Don't bother looking. I'm already gone. A fresh wave of terror surged through me. Mom, this isn't just him watching me, I whispered. He's letting me know he can. My mother's hands dropped to her sides helplessly. I swallowed hard, turning toward her. He's not trying to scare me, I said, the words trembling out of me. He's trying to tell me I can't run. She stepped closer, eyes full of fear and fury. But he's wrong. You're not alone in this. I shook my head. But he's not alone either, because someone, my boyfriend, had opened the door for him. Someone had helped him. Someone who knew my routines, my fears, my weaknesses. I felt my heart breaking, but it also hardened into something unrecognizable. Resolve, defiance, a flame igniting from the ashes. I lifted the phone again, my voice barely a whisper. Mom, I think this was his warning. My mother gripped my shoulders, trying to steady me. What does he want, sweetheart? She asked. I swallowed, my throat tightening, the truth finally forming like a knife inside me. He wants— My voice cracked. He wants me to come back. And before my mother could respond, the phone buzzed one last time. A final message. Unknown. You know where to meet me. I stared at it. Because I did know. I knew exactly where he meant. And it was the same place where everything had started. What is the meeting place? And what horrifying truth is waiting there? I stared at the message until the words burned themselves into my vision. You know where to meet me. And God help me. I did. There was only one place he could mean. The place everything had spiraled from. The place where I first heard the voice. Where I first saw the document. Where I realized the person I loved was a stranger wearing a familiar face. My house. Our house. My mother grabbed my arm the moment she saw my expression collapse. No, she said firmly. Absolutely not. You're not going anywhere near him. I lifted my trembling hand and showed her the message. He's not giving me a choice. She shook her head violently. You always have a choice. He wants control. Don't hand it to him. Her voice rang with fear. But there was something else buried inside it too, a truth she didn't want to say but couldn't hide anymore. Mom, I whispered, you're terrified. And not just for me. For something else, something you know. Her eyes glossed with tears. I held her gaze, steady, unblinking. Please, I said softly. I need the rest. I need to walk in there knowing everything. She looked at the floor. then slowly reached into the drawer of the old cabinet beside her. Her hands shook as she pulled out something flat and sealed in an envelope yellowed with time. "I kept this," she whispered, "because your father asked me to only give it to you if his brother ever came back." My heart thudded. "Mom, what is it?" She pressed the envelope into my hands. "The truth," she said. "And the reason your uncle wants you." My fingers trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, in my father's tight, careful handwriting. As my eyes traveled down the page, my entire world cracked open. "If you are reading this, it means my brother has returned. And it means he wants what he always wanted. Your inheritance." My breath caught. Inheritance? What inheritance? We were not wealthy people. I kept reading. "I never told you this because you were too young to carry the weight. Before you were born, I invested in a project with a close friend. None of us knew it would later be worth millions. Your uncle tried to claim it. I refused. I put everything in your name instead. Millions. In my name. A secret fortune I never knew existed." My father's writing grew shaky toward the end. "He said he would take you when you were older. He said he would make you sign. I pray you never meet him." The letter slipped from my hands. Every heartbeat felt like an explosion inside my chest. My uncle didn't want me. He wanted the money. He wanted the fortune I didn't even know existed. And my boyfriend, he had been his doorway, his weapon, his way in. My mother was crying quietly now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Your father thought he had time. He thought hiding the truth would protect you." I wiped my face. Then I stood up. "I have to end this," I said. "No," she tried to stop me, but I gently held her shoulders. "This isn't running into danger. This is taking back what's mine." Her tears fell harder. "You're walking into a trap." I nodded. "I know. But I'm not walking in blind anymore." The drive back to the house felt like moving through a dream. Every streetlight blurred. Every shadow leaned inward as if listening. When I reached the house, the night wrapped around it like a dark hand. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. I stepped inside. The silence was thick, waiting. Then I heard it. A slow clap from the living room. My heart nearly stopped. My boyfriend stepped into view first. His smile was wrong, clever, cruel. But the man who stepped out behind him, I recognized him instantly. From old photos my father once hid, from a face that looked too much like his. My uncle. "Finally," he said, smiling like a serpent. "You came home." I didn't move. I didn't speak. Then he gestured toward the table. And there it was. Another document. Another pen. "Sign it," he said softly. "And all this will end." My hands shook, but my voice didn't. "No." Their expressions changed. Not shocked. Annoyed. Like I was refusing to follow a script. "You will sign," my boyfriend said coldly. "You owe us that." I stepped back, straightened my spine. "I don't owe you anything." My uncle's smile vanished. His voice turned sharp. "You think you can fight us? We've been planning this for years." I nodded slowly. No." Their eyes widened. And then, I reached into my pocket and pressed play on the recording app. The red light blinked. The screen lit up. Their voices, every threat, every confession, captured in crystal clarity. My boyfriend lunged toward me. But it was too late. Police sirens erupted outside. My mother had gone behind my back. She called them the moment I left. She followed me. She waited outside. Officers burst through the door, shouting commands. My uncle's face twisted. Rage, shock, betrayal. But he couldn't move fast enough. He was dragged down, cuffed, silenced. My boyfriend's screams echoed as they pulled him out. And I stood frozen in the center of the room, barely breathing. A female officer approached gently. "You're safe now," she whispered. For the first time in months, I believed it. Later, as my mother held me outside the house, trembling with relief, I finally let the tears fall, not from fear, from release, from freedom. She kissed the top of my head. "It's over," she whispered. "It's really over." I looked at the dark sky above us, deep, endless, starless, and for the first time, I felt something return. Myself. Sometimes the people we love become the doors our enemies walk through. Sometimes the darkest betrayal comes from the closest heart. But healing begins the moment you decide that the story will no longer be written by those who tried to break you. And as that shadow leaned closer in the dark, I had no idea my entire life was about to shift forever. Enjoy the story, and before we go any further, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so more people can follow this journey.